The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
Well, perhaps the most hotly contested issue that we saw the last couple of weeks of the session, certainly the last day, had to do with extending the modified business tax, the payroll tax, and the mechanics of doing so and where the money would be going, which ended up being toward education. So the big question, I think, let's talk about the MBT first. Needed a 2/3 votes initially. It was amended after it failed to just have the simple majority pass. Is it destined for court?
I don't know if it's destined for court. If it is, I mean, their beloved opportunity scholarships are a part of that as well. And so they're going to be taking money away from kids that they, say that they support. So at the end of the day, if they take it to court, they take it to court. There's a legal ruling that the LCB put out that said that the 2/3 stamp, and that's all it is a stamp, is not required on these types of things because this was simply an extension of a sunset, permanently extending it, so that we didn't lose this revenue stream. In a state like Nevada, we don't have that much revenue coming in to begin with. We need this kind of tax to be there. And again, this is nothing new. Many of those people who are in the building currently, especially Republicans, have already voted for this multiple times and extending the sunset multiple times. In the Senate, this was the only thing that they had to leverage, the Republicans had to leverage, and so they leveraged it. They tried to make deals with them, they tried to negotiate with them. Settlemyre said, oh, well, all we want is that stamp put back on it. We just want the 2/3 stamp put back on it. They put it back on, they still didn't vote for it. So at the end of the day, they called their bluff. They brought it back without the stamp on it because it wasn't required, and they voted it through. So if Settlemyre didn't want to participate and didn't want to negotiate in good faith, he got what he deserved.
I want to get your reaction as part of this when it came back after they couldn't draw any Republicans to vote for it. It was essentially the same bill as amended as what was voted down, but they also stripped education savings accounts, ESAs, out. Let's just tackle that first and then I have a follow-up. So what was your reaction to seeing that permanent repeal put in there?
Well, I mean, it's too bad. It wasn't a funded situation to begin with. So it was a law without any kind of funding since they wouldn't fund it, when it first was initiated. And to me, that's a shame. I was a big supporter of the ESA. I still am, for that matter. This battle about sunset taxes has been going on big time since '09. And it went back and forth while Sandoval was governor, and now that Sisolak is there, it's the same exact thing. Listen, two things, quick. I hope it goes to court. I mean, because I don't believe in the whole idea of sunset taxes. On the other hand, I also happen to believe that because there's such thing as sunset taxes, that any Republican who ever votes for a tax where they say this has got a sunset element to it. So, we're only going to have it for 2 years, and then we're going to sunset. They're fools. They're falling for something very foolish. There's no such thing as a sunset tax. Once a tax is voted on, once it's there forever. I think it was 16 in his State of the State when Sandoval even said that. Well, we had it, we got it, we needed it, so we're keeping it, and it's part of our forever budget. He's right. And again, I hope we go to court and fight it. But he's right. The point is don't vote for any tax. I'm against tax increases at all, period. But don't ever vote for a tax increase that says it's going to be sunsetted. In 2 years or 4 years, it'll never go away. Once you institute a tax in this country, it never goes away.
The irony that comes out of this to me is Colton Lockhead from the RJ then reported that in the run-up to this, you had mentioned some of the other things that were offered, including tax increases in other areas. Yep. Republicans had offered, if we let the MBT sunset, we'll figure out some other tax to raise.
Sales tax. Yeah.
Whether it's a sales tax or even other options were thrown out by individual members. Interesting to me that the focus was specifically on the MBT for them.
The problem is that those were not real negotiations. The Republicans came and they had frankly ridiculous things that they were trying to offer up, and that wasn't going to fly because the governor had said we're not going to put in any new taxes. I mean, he said that from the beginning. So why offer new taxes when they knew that wasn't going to be on the table? Number one. Number two, the MBT was already there, like Alan said. This isn't a new tax. This is nothing new. This has been built into the budget now for years. So by raising or by keeping this, they're not raising any new taxes. This is just a continuation of a program that we already had. So the notion that the Republicans would offer something like that, they were trying to get the Democrats to cave into doing something that the governor wasn't going to go for. And at the end of the day, they called their bluff, and they had the legal opinion to back up what they did. And now if it goes to court, I think the Republicans are going to lose. And so at the end of the day, I'm glad they did what they did. I'm glad that they pushed the MBT through because we need that revenue. And at the end of the day, they weren't negotiating in good faith, so they got a little extra cherry on top with repealing the education savings account voucher language. And I'm totally fine with it.
Genuine or not, are you surprised that Republicans were putting some sort of a tax increase on the table, even if just for negotiation purposes?
Well, not in this day and age, I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's hard to distinguish between Republicans and Democrats this time around. I mean, it really is. By the way, regarding the legal aspect of this whole thing, I think it was in 15, I believe it's 15, that the courts actually decided to extend that sunset tax and said it was part of education, or I don't recall the exact situation, but they did extend it via the courts. So, I mean, you're right. I mean, again, I hope it goes to court, but I don't think that they have a chance to really push it through. Once you initiate a tax, it's there forever. And I think it's unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate that Republicans are out there figuring out a way how can we substitute the business tax for sales taxes. That was one of the big things, a quarter cent, I think they were talking about. I mean, Republicans should be sticking to their guns, and they're not. I mean, Democrats are in charge this year, so I mean, they got a lot of not everything, but they got a lot of what they wanted. So.
Well, and that's where I was going to go next. Yep. AB 309, so that's the enabling language for the county here, Clark County, to raise the sales tax another 1/4%. Some have called it a punt by the governor's office to put it down on the county commission to decide. Tick Segerblum has said that he is supportive of it, but he's the one who has come out publicly and supported it. Does the county commission end up actually doing it?
Well, what I find hilarious is that the state legislature thinks that the county is capable of raising taxes, but they don't find them capable of, instituting new gun laws. But that's besides the point. What I find interesting about this is that it is a punt. It's a complete punt by the legislature and by the governor because they don't want to raise taxes. And at the end of the day, regardless of whether you think we should have raised taxes or not this time, and what we did with the MBT, that's simply a drop in the bucket. If we truly want to have a good education system and have the services that we need, the things that I saw up in Carson City this time of cutting and slashing and deal making and not really making good legislation because we never have enough money, and there's always an excuse to why we don't have enough money. The reason we don't have enough money is we don't bring in enough revenue, period. And if we want to get serious about our education system, we need to have a better tax structure, and we need to go back in and look at our tax structure that we currently have and revamp it. Because putting sales tax at the county level is a regressive tax. Now, am I glad that they will potentially put more money into the Clark County School District? Sure. Am I glad that they can now use that money also maybe for homeless services and things like that? Great. But at the end of the day, this is a punt. And they punted it to the Clark County Commission so that they didn't have to deal with it, and that's unacceptable.
And potentially punted it to the second half of the term, because I think the day after the session, the governor had talked about without saying like instituting an income tax or something like that, the governor had talked about, well, we're going to work on more ways to raise revenue for the next time around, which would be 2021, the second half of the first term.
It's interesting. I mean, you were up there for the whole legislative session. I was up there many years ago for two days. So I have not been up there like you have. But there's a saying somewhere around that about watching sausage be made, and that applies, I know, to talk radio, how we create topics and what goes on, and it certainly applies to the creation of laws and how people decide that. You don't want to watch how all this is done. It's like watching sausage be made. So it's okay that I didn't get it up there. The one thing I'm glad about is that they did take out this aspect of allowing the counties or cities or locales to have their own gun laws, because that would have been one of the most horrific things you can imagine. You have a law in Las Vegas that says one thing, Henderson that says another.
They amended that out. That's not what it would have done. It would have been counties only.
Okay, so right, I go from Clark County to Nye, and all of a sudden,
Just like you go to Arizona to Las Vegas or Nevada.
But the difference is that Nye and Clark are in the same state. So in my world, in the world, most people, and obviously this is what they believed in up in Carson City, was that is that when you're in the state, you have one state law that applies to the entire state, which is they do in most states, California and other places. They have one state law that applies. We have different state laws than other states. That's true, California and Arizona, Utah. But within the state of Nevada, we should have one law. I shouldn't have to worry about if I'm going from Clark and I'm going to drive to Nye or back from Nye to Clark, am I violating the law? When I first moved here, that was an aspect of cities, because North Las Vegas had laws that differed from not only Las Vegas, but from Clark County. And you could not actually have a loaded firearm in your car. You could have a gun that had to be unloaded and separated from the gun, a la California, and that's of course now been changed. So that was one of the good things that came out of this legislative process. And besides, Toke Segerblum wanted to go ahead and initiate a concept of this past to make a law that the Strip was going to be a gun-free zone of holidays. So in other words, you're going to be advertising to all the crazies out there, hey, it's a shooting gallery on New Year's Eve, come on down, which would have been horrendous. It would have been a very, very stupid thing. So I think you got to go back and fire it up and just forget about the whole thing.
Talked a lot about education in the coverage included, but a lot of other things happened up in Carson City in the last couple of weeks as well. The big cannabis omnibus overhaul bill passed. A huge component of that, though, to allow pot lounges, that was stripped out. That didn't happen. A lot of the critics and even a lot of, well, let's phrase it like this. A lot of people thought that the pot lounges should have been in there simply for the fact that the industry depends on tourism very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it ridiculous that a tourist can come to Nevada, can come to Las Vegas, buy legal marijuana, and then have nowhere to smoke it. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. And it's clear that the gaming industry was the ones who, when you were up there, you could see the writing on the wall. The gaming industry doesn't want this. So, you know, the city of Las Vegas put an ordinance in that said 1,000 feet from any gaming establishment, just like they have schools. They go up to Carson City, now suddenly they have a 1,500-foot barrier because they care more about casinos than kids, I guess. And now they're not going to allow legal marijuana lounges. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. It's legal in the state of Nevada. The voters voted on it. We should be able to consume it. And if you're a traveler here, you're not able to consume that in a gaming establishment. So where are you going to go now to consume it? It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And I think we're missing out on a tremendous amount of revenue and a tremendous opportunity for new ways to make money. So it's so short-sighted, and it was so frustrating to see up there.
New jobs as well as you operate the lounges.
Absolutely.
I know that you weren't supportive of the measure when it passed, of recreational marijuana. However, because it is law now, I just want to get your take on the fact that we're kind of still in this limbo position.
Exactly, we are, and that's the biggest problem. First of all, if anyone thinks, I've done commentaries on this and done shows on this, if anyone thinks for 2 seconds that tourists are not buying it, let's start out with the obvious, okay? They can buy edibles. And you go back to a casino in your room or walk down the street and pop it and eat it, and that's it. So nobody, who knows what you're chewing or eating, gum or whatever. So yeah, people, do you think people aren't doing that? Please. Number two, tourists buying smokable pot. Oh, they're not smoking it anywhere, okay, except for the Strip and downtown when you walk around and you can smell it. Okay, so let's just be honest about this. I mean, that's all I'm saying. I did vote against it by the recreational, but it passed. And if it passed, we should be doing something to accommodate it. There are two issues involved here. One is that the gaming industry, I don't fault them. I do not fault the gaming because they're beholden to the federal government for licensing for gambling and everything else. So and the federal government says it's as bad as heroin. It's you know, Class one drug. If I'm
Schedule 1, yep.
Schedule 1. So you can't use it, can't have it in a gambling establishment, all that.
Right. Don't have it there.
So I get that the gaming people are going, we don't want to get involved in this thing. It's going to be questionable. We don't want to get our license pulled. We don't get fined. Sure. So I absolutely get that. And the last point on this is probably the most obvious, is that there is a disparity of laws that exist regarding marijuana in cities, counties, states, and federal government. I would have expected that the biggest pothead in the White House, Obama, would have done away with the federal laws against marijuana. I mean, it made it decriminalized at the very least. I don't know if Trump will ever do it. I kind of question it. But the bottom line is that the federal government has got to get together. It's legal. Again, I'm not crazy about it, but the idea is that it's legal. Most states it's legal. They're legalizing one after the other, and they've got to get on the same page. When they're on the same page, you'll wind up with pot lounges, which, by the way, you'll be surprised. I actually support pot lounges because, again, to say that tourists aren't smoking it is you're heading to the ground and pretending it doesn't exist.
And if gaming doesn't want it on their property, the only way to get it off their property is to have a lounge where people can go and smoke it. That's the smartest and safest way to do it, so that they don't have to worry about their licenses.
Was supporting this, by the way. The sheriff and Metro here in Clark County, they supported the idea. Now there are issues that I have about lounges, but they're going to have to figure out how to deal with it as long as you legalized it for recreational purposes. You don't want people getting drunk and then getting stoned, because then one potentiates the other, and you got a lot of issues to deal with.
Sure.
So I get it. You can't have the way they were going to set it up. You can't have alcohol served in a pot establishment consuming. You may not be able to have food because you can't have smoke right now. Somebody smoking a cigarette where you have food. So there are a lot of things to work out. But they have to get their heads out of the ground, all of them. And again, a lot of this is the liberals, the Democrats, who are playing games with this. And the Republicans just stand by the side going, this is amazing, because they're all going after each other. All the politicos have got to get together and say, okay, we've got to make sure that federal government decriminalizes it.
Well, and part of it too is, yes, I agree, they're putting their heads in the sand on this and a lot of different issues, whether it's taxes and other things. Part of this is also, we give our legislators 120 days to figure these things out every other year. That's not enough time to do these types of things. And if you want good legislation, you don't have enough time. I mean, they went up right into the wire on a lot of these issues, and there's just not enough time to truly sit down and figure these things out. So my hope is that during the interim, they sit down, they figure out how we're going to do pot lounges, they figure out the regulations we're going to have, they figure out what types of different things they need to put in place, and next session they come back with a serious thought process as to how they're going to implement these things, because we need them.
That's in that area. I agree with you. I mean, they should do all this in the interim. Next legislative session, get it going. But one thing they should do, and the governor should politic for, is getting the federal government on board too. Until the federal government's on board, you're going to have this conflict going on throughout the entire country, because you have casinos that exist in other places of the country. Get the federal government off the dime and have them say, okay, we surrender on that. What concerns me, by the way, is that Colorado just legalized psychedelics for people, recreational use.
Oakland just did mushrooms.
So here's the deal. I worked in the field of psychotherapy for 10 years. I can tell you that that I know of people who in Canada, not here, but in Canada, were used LSD for psychotherapy, and there is a psychotherapeutic effect to certain uses. People know what they're doing with certain psychotropics like LSD or these, So I support legalizing that stuff for medicinal purposes, big time. But recreational purposes, to sit there and pop some mushrooms in Oakland or Colorado and then get in your car and drive the freeways of I'm not flying to Oakland anymore. I'll fly to San Francisco, I guess, from now on if I have to go. But I don't want to fly into Oakland anymore. That scares the hell out of me.
We have time for one more real quick. So,
Fire it up.
So let's just go with the big picture. I think overall, just give me a ranking on the session, how it went now that we've seen what's gone through.
It was a frustrating session. And look, as a progressive, we got a lot of really good things that I'm very happy about. A lot of things that were good starts that we're going to have to come back and continue working on over and over and over again. But at the end of the day, it was frustrating because I think you have a lot of new people in there. You don't have the institutional knowledge that you used to have with folks like Raggio and Titus and all of these folks who were there for a very long time. And you had the situation where halfway through session, you had a new majority leader. She had never done this before. So there was a lot of new things that they were trying to figure out. And so it was frustrating. I think we did a lot of really good work. I think that the Republicans kind of went out with a whimper. You know, we're used to having Roberson there, whether you love him or hate him. Like, he was good at politics. And you just didn't have that with the Republicans this year. They just kind of went out with a whimper. And so at the end of the day, I think there's still a lot of really good work to be done. But things like Jason Frierson's voting rights bills, AB 50, which I know we were going to talk about, moving the municipal elections to even years, that's a really good way to do that. And I'm glad they got that done. Felon restoration, formerly incarcerated restoration of voting rights. That's something that the right and the left kind of united on because it's the right thing to do. So I think there's a lot that came out of this session that I'm really pleased with. I think Speaker Frierson in particular did a very good job.
Yeah, I think Majority Leader Cannizzaro said something like 60% of the bills that went through were bipartisan bills in some fashion. And you mentioned the consequences. You said Republicans going out with a whimper. Jim Wheeler, the Assembly Minority Leader, stepped down the next day from the leadership position. Dr. Robin Titus took over, so already a leadership change on the Republican side coming out of there as well. All of that being said, what's a grade or a rank that you can give for the session?
Well, first of all, I think there should be a change in the Republican leadership. I've said that for a long time. Republicans have got to realize that they need fresh blood. To the Democrats' credit, they have understood that, and they have gone through some changes in the last 4 years, I'm going to say. And while I may not be in their team, as I've said to you many times, I respect the fact that, you know, they have done what it takes to win the game. And Republicans have got to learn from that. The session itself, I'm going to give it a C all the way across the board. There are things I didn't like that came out of it. There are things that I'm glad did not come out of it. The gun situation for local municipalities, particularly, and there are some other things that I was glad about. But it was a kind of a session where a lot of people didn't know what they were doing because they were brand new, and there appears, you know this better than I do, I don't know, there appears to me at least that there wasn't a lot of communication between Sisolak, his office, and a lot of the Democrat majority, and Republicans who have been there in the past who are no longer there. I don't know if Sisolak was in touch with Sandoval, or if his people were in touch with Sandoval's people to figure out how to do certain things. And that's a shame because Sandoval is, you know, a very liberal Republican. I think he and Sisolak would have got, and their people would have gotten along fine. But I'm not sure that this administration took advantage of talking to the other one. You saw it behind the scenes. Is that right? Or?
I mean, look, I think that there is a lot of communication issues that need to be worked out, whether it's between the governor's office and the legislative building, between the two chambers, the Senate and Assembly. But those things happen every session. It just looks a little different every session. You know that every session has kind of its own flavor and its own feeling, and this one was just different because there are so many new people in there, right. And Sisolak's brand new, and we're all just trying to figure it out, the lobbyists included. And so at the end of the day, I think there were some really important lessons learned. I think that we will come back next legislative session. There's going to be a lot on our plates next legislative session with redistricting, and so we're going to have to figure some things out. And by we, I mean all of us, Republicans, Democrats, lobbyists, legislators. We're going to have to figure some things out during the biennium and come back and actually implement some of this stuff.
Do you know if the governor's office was in touch with the former governor?
I have no idea.
Okay. I mean, because after 8 years, they were, you know.
To put a bow on this one, to your point of fresh blood in the Republican Party and new leadership, so Robin Titus, a Northerner, she's been around. She flips in there. The two deputies underneath her, the South, Tom Roberts, a freshman, the North, Jill Tolles, second session for her, both fairly moderate Republicans in there. Is the moderate Republican the way that needs to go to work with Democrats?
we need to be able to retake the Republicans need to retake the state Senate and the Assembly. I believe that there are times, and I know a lot of my brothers and sisters who are conservative as I am, don't believe we should ever compromise on anything. The art of politics is to compromise, and at times we have to do that. I don't like a lot of the things that Democrats were proposing. They wouldn't like a lot of things that I would propose. But there is a matter of sitting down and saying, okay, let's work things out. Let's find some common ground on some of this stuff. I don't want to raise taxes. I don't want to give in certain things. They don't want to give in certain things. But you've got to sit down and try to work it out. And Republicans, if they want to win, you've got to go with what is going to be the most important issue to people, and that's your pocketbook. Everything else, I mean, all the social issues, whether it's guns or abortion or any of that stuff, that's all that secondary. Because if you don't have money to feed your family, to pay your mortgage or pay your rent or to put clothes on your kids or to put gas in your car, take your kids to school, I mean, what does the rest of it mean? You better go ahead and do it. The only thing I'm sorry that they didn't put more money into safety for public schools. I think that was.
Well, they ended up with the MBT putting an additional $17 million into it.
To me, that
was in addition to what was already put in the DSA for it. So they put quite a bit in there, and the Republicans voted against that too.
Well, and to me, that's a shame, because the safety and security of schools, we've talked about this the last several weeks, to me the safety and security of schools is number one. Yeah. Not teacher increases,
you
salary.
Should call your Republicans, because they all voted against it.
Well, I'm also looking at Clark County and what they're doing in the school district and everything. They should have been building better security in public schools before the last school year started, and now that we're in the summer, they better do it this summer. God forbid there's a problem in the future. People are going to say, well, now we ought to do it. It'll be a day late and a dollar short.
Look, at the end of the day, I think on the Republican issue, I think they have to be more moderate, and they have to, and you're seeing that now with people like Tom Roberts and Glenn Levitt and folks who are willing to come across the aisle and actually have a conversation. Jill Tolles is a great example of that. They're good leaders, and I think they understand that where the Republican Party in the state needs to go in the legislature is to be more moderate. At the end of the day, though, I think that what Republicans did wrong in 2015 and why they didn't keep the majority in 2015 is they just rammed a bunch of things through without thinking about the long-term consequences of what they were ramming through. And voters held them accountable in 2016.
Republicans especially.
That is the difference between what they did in 2015 and what they did this session. The Democrats did not just ram a bunch of stuff through pocketbook, whether it's around minimum wage or whether it's paid sick leave, things that really make a difference to people in our communities. And they moved those things forward because they know that those are the things that are important to real people. And they weren't ramming things through that were extreme or that were outside of the things that they talked about on the campaign trail. And so that's the difference between the 2015 legislative session and this legislative session. Was, sure, it's frustrating for advocates like me because we want to see everything. We want to see the world. But at the end of the day, it's smart politics because they didn't do that. And now we can come back in the next session and the session after that and continue working on things that matter to Nevadans. And
I do agree with you on a good point here, and that is I was against the minimum wage increase and the whole thing with universal health care and all the things they want to propose. But the point is that is speaking to the issues that people are concerned about, the bread and butter issues, not the issues I said people aren't concerned about. Those are the bread and butter issues. People are looking at that stuff. That's what they're concerned about. Democrats did focus on that a lot, and Republicans have got to do that too. Republicans in 2015 did what? They gave us the largest tax increase in the history of the state of Nevada.
That's right. Conservative,
Republicans, your buddy Roberson, and people like that. Yeah. I mean, all of that. I mean, they were the ones who gave us this tax increase, and that worked against our pocketbook. I mean, if Democrats had done that, I would understand it. I mean, I'd oppose it. I'd understand it. But Republicans to do that? And again, pocketbook issues, you're taking money out of people's pockets by having the largest tax increase. Fools. And they deserve to lose when they did.
Let's leave it there for this week. Thank you both for coming in.
Thank you.
And welcome back from Carson City.